Hi, Shelly.
Hi, Andrea. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
Good. I assume Amelia's just setting up the slideshow, or maybe you are, and we'll be on shortly to welcome everyone to the meeting. Yes, there she is.
Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm putting out the agenda for the moment being that we've got a few more people hopping on here. And Shelly, when you're ready to get started, I can get your slides up. I'm just putting the agenda up for now.
Well, just let me know and I'll be ready to go.
All right. Thank you for hopping on. And for everyone who is currently on here, if you'd like your own copy of today's agenda, I just put the link in the chat. Well, while we are getting started, there are a few people that may come along and I need to admit them to the waiting room, but we can go ahead and go through some introductions before going into Shelly's slideshow for today. If I'll give an example of, we're going to go through our names, organization, and then what's your favorite holiday dish, and just kind of whoever would like to unmute themselves next can. But my name's Amelia Atwood. I'm the Special Projects Manager at Healthy Harvest of North Iowa. I would say my favorite holiday dish is my mom's yeast rolls. She makes those, and she got that recipe from my grandma, and those are just always we're always all fighting over who gets the last one. So those are really good.
My name is Zach Cassidy. I'm the Central Iowa Land Scout for the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust. My favorite holiday dish, and one I don't understand why isn't more common throughout the year, is stuffing. I think stuffing is amazing, and the cranberry sauce. Like I don't understand why we don't eat those year round. They're so good.
Hi, my name is Jill McKean, and I'm the DCAT coordinator for kind of the Northeast Sector 7 counties DCAT and CPPC coordinator. And one of the things that we make that disappear really quickly is called hanky panks. It's kind of the rye bread with your mixture on the top, and you heat them up. And my family, you can make 2 trays, and they're gone within 5 minutes. So.
I'm Andrea Ebelsizer, and I'm the Executive Director for Healthy Harvest of North Iowa. And one of my favorite holiday things, I guess, would be butter tarts. And they are very much what they sound like. They are small, tarts, but they're filled with sugar and butter, and they are absolutely delicious. Sometimes people put raisins or nuts in them too, but so don't want to eat too many, but sure want to get a couple around the holidays. Not a healthy food option, or a local generally. Maybe locally made if you're lucky to have the recipe.
Mine is smothered in butter too, so I think butter is necessary at this time of year.
Yeah.
Is it my turn? Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Lauren Bodke. I'm the AmeriCorps service member representing North Iowa Mutual Aid. And my favorite like holiday dish is like homemade rolls, bread, and pie. It's like I love my gluten.
I don't know. Mallory, are you there and want to make an introduction, or maybe she answered it? No, that's your. Yeah.
I'm
Well-
going to go ahead and drop a link to the slides in the chat as well. I put them in a PDF format so they could be shared Google Drive, but we will also open them up in PowerPoint for today. And thank you all for sharing. We'll see if there's a few more people hopping on, but I love
It
hearing
looks
all
like,
the different holidays.
Looks like Mal is driving and listening at the same time.
I see that now. Based off checking in, we've just got 3 more that may hop on, but I will grab them if they do and admit them to our Zoom meeting. But thank you all for again coming today. Shalene, I'll go ahead and hand it off to you for a little bit more of an introduction as I'm getting your slides up.
All right, I'm Shelly Codner. I am the state coordinator for the Iowa Waste Exchange Program, but I also am an area resource specialist, and I have my own area, which is the I-35 corridor that starts at the Minnesota border and runs to the Missouri border, one county on each side of I-35. My favorite holiday dish to make is homemade pies. My favorite holiday dish to eat is, I'm right there with Zach on the homemade sage stuffing is my very, very favorite. And I like it to be all dried out and crunchy. So, and everybody can see the slides, I'm assuming. So I'll go ahead and get started then, Amelia.
Yep, so our topic being food waste, we have Shelly speaking a little bit on behalf of Iowa Waste Exchange today. We're very happy to have you here and feel free to get started.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the program, an overview of the program.
Yeah, are you going to optimize or like increase the screen size? Or presenter mode or?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about an overview of the program in general, what we do, and then I'll do a focus on food waste and why that is so important to what we do. As I stated, I'm with the Iowa Waste Exchange. I'm the program coordinator for the state, for Region 12 Council of Governments, but I also have my own area that I work in. The Iowa Waste Exchange is a free, confidential, and non-regulatory program of the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. And why we are confidential is because for 2 reasons. One is it's in code, And the second one is that we go into a lot of manufacturers, large and small, a lot of businesses, large and small, throughout the state of Iowa. And we want to have that credibility that some of their proprietary trade secrets are not going to be shared with their competition. So everything that we talk about with our what we call clients is confidential. Our main gig is to reduce the amount of land materials going into Iowa's landfills. So divert those materials from landfills. We have a lot of different tools that we do that. We are a program of the DNR, so we have some financial assistance resources at our fingertips, including the Solid Waste Alternatives Program, which is a loan program that has up to $10,000 that's forgivable for anybody that's interested in doing a landfill diversion project. And landfill diversion can include diverting food waste to get into the hands of those that need it. So it's not strictly hauling the traditional recyclables like you think, cardboard, plastics, paper. It also puts a high priority on food waste. Another program I'm going to talk about in depth at the end of this presentation is the Increased Food Storage Capacity Program. And that is a program of the DNR as well. And that's to assist food pantries and others that are feeding at risk and at need folks. But our primary goal is in alignment with the waste management hierarchy that we first try to reduce. If we can't reduce, then we move on to the next rung on the hierarchy, which is reuse. And ironically, I guess I talk about this a little bit later, but the EPA has changed the hierarchy with pertaining to food, which I will talk about in a little bit. And if all else fails, then we recycle. We try to recycle. Okay, Amelia. The services, we provide a number of services to enable us to divert material from the landfill. We'll identify marketable waste, revenue streams. We'll go into large and small industrial manufacturing, large and small businesses, schools, universities, several venues, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, and identify what they have is a marketable material. They might creating a byproduct that they don't realize that there is a value to it, and that they can either be carbon neutral in finding a home for that, or where they can actually generate revenues by selling those materials. We try to obtain it, and we try to assist in finding markets for those value-added byproducts. There are markets that do exist already for the typical recycling materials, but there are other markets that are emerging, materials that are emerging that we never thought about when the waste exchange started, like electronics, for example. So we also try to help build the infrastructure to support waste reduction and recycling in those areas. The other thing that we do is folks will call and say, hey, I have a process and I need X amount of this material in our process. One example I can give you of that is plastic recycling of Iowa Falls. We're making benches and park amenities, and we need X amount of this type of plastic. Can you locate that? So then we try to find industries that are producing that, or for example, the egg industry is producing plastic containers, but there's an issue because they held chemicals. So we need to make sure that those are clean properly before they can be used to make other products. So we help develop the infrastructure for that. We also do grant writing assistance, which I'm working on a grant today for a large nonprofit in the Des Moines metro area to upcycle more consumer goods, electronics, and books. I also assist with those swap grants that I had talked to you about, the solid waste alternatives program, and can assist with the increased food storage capacity program that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We also assist in establishing protocols. There are folks that need waste management plans, hazardous waste management plans. There's some funding with the Iowa Economic Development County and the state agency that require that folks submit a waste management plan before they can be included or considered for funding. So we help them as well as any of our clients that need assistance in that area and developing protocols and standard operating practices revolving around waste reduction and recycling. Public speaking, like today, small and large audiences, workshops, lunch and learns, continuing education. For example, NIAC had a class that was revolving around holiday waste reduction. And I spoke at that, and that's been several years ago, but continuing education in that area. We speak on waste reduction, recycling, and upcycling, which is kind of one of my guilty pleasures, is making things out of old stuff. And Andrea has seen me do that a number of times at the Clear Lake Central Gardens. We also participate in special projects and events as requested. So an example I can give is I was the sustainability coordinator for the Susan G. Komen race in Des Moines, where we tried to reduce the waste footprint of that event. The DO Tour, which was an Olympic qualifying event in Des Moines, I also assisted with the waste reduction and recycling at that venue. So basically anything that anybody asks us to do with regard to waste reduction and recycling, if we are available, we will assist with those special events. I mentioned Clear Lake Central Gardens. I go to Fresh on Friday at least once a month throughout the summer to talk with folks and do some upcycled crafty projects. There's several venues around the state that I do that with as time allows. Okay, Amelia. We work with everybody, basically anybody that calls. Industrial business is our major focus because that's where the large volumes of materials come from. But we work with all sizes of business industry, schools, government entities, cities, municipalities, hospitals, nonprofits, private residents. Anybody that calls and has a need is our client. All right, Amelia. There are 4.5 of us, and that's not 4 tall people and 1 really short one. There's 4.5 full-time equivalents. We will likely, as of next year, be having 4 full-time folks, and our map will change a little bit. But I'm in area 2. That's my primary waste exchange area, and we have 4 other folks that have the other areas. Number 4 and 5 are part-time. The waste exchanges, they're part-time gig, but again, likely that will change after next fiscal year. Okay, Amelia. Here's some stats, and this was through last fiscal year, which ended on June 30th. But the waste exchange started in 1990 as a pilot project at Indian Hills Community College. And since that time, we have diverted 4.4 million tons of waste. We also look at the economics of waste reduction and recycling. And in order for companies to remain relevant and competitive, they also need to make a profit. So through these interactions, we've saved Iowa's businesses and industry $135 million. And since 1990, we've also assisted over 76,000 clients. So that's a lot of waste. If we could look at 4.4 million tons of waste in one spot, that would be a lot. For example, my county takes in like 15 ton a day. So if we multiplied that by several, we would come up with that 4.4 million. I'm not sure what the landfill in North Iowa takes in a day, or what they have left of their life, and I should look that up. But as you can imagine, prior to this job, I was the director of the Solid Waste Commission for Butler County. But my clients now, I enjoy this so much because I'm helping them solve problems. So they're likely, in most cases, very happy to see me and very happy to work with me to save their company money and to reduce their waste. Okay, Amelia. So here are some of my favorite examples of some of the things. Now we handle anything, like I said, like you've heard me say probably in the past, from tankers of industrial sludge to stuffed animals and anything in between. And honestly, the stuffed animals are more fun than the sludge for sure. But they don't yield as much volume. So we're also looking to divert as much as we can from the landfills. But the stuffed animal portion of it is helping me enjoy doing what I do. Those are the best kind of matches. And that actually, you'll see in the corner that lamb chop, which was one of my very first matches. So that little girl is probably in college now. But there was a company in Mason City, which is no longer there. But they had a warehouse full of those lamb chop puppets. And we called it the match that never ends. It was an entire warehouse full of those lamb chop puppets. And I don't know if you guys all know who lamb chop is, but it was very popular when I was little and when my kids were little. They went all over. I carried those around in my vehicle for a long time, but finally got them distributed. They went to cities for like Christmas programs, and they went to daycares and schools, and it was just a really happy, fun project. The next one is that's 12 tons of Scholastic readers. They came from an Iowa school that had purchased them and then determined that they did not want to use this particular series. So they had 12 tons of these in their gym in boxes, and they needed to find a home for them. Fortunately, we found a home rather quickly. There was a truck that was going down to the southern United States, where they had just suffered some hurricanes and lost schools and libraries. And so we loaded those 12-ton of Scholastic readers onto this truck, and they took them down there to be shared with those folks who were very grateful for getting them. We assist with construction and demolition as well. Iowa has a derelict building program that is available to municipalities only, and we assist them with finding markets for their materials and demanufacturing the building. There's also a program that's called LEED, where certain agencies are LEED certified their building is because of the criteria that they followed. And we have to do on-site waste sorts and assessments of those in order for them to keep their qualification. In the slide that shows the vials, I had 10 tons of lab equipment that were coming out of a company in Ames that they could no longer use. So we hooked up with a mission who is based out of Osceola, Iowa, and they got those delivered down to the coast where they had recently suffered from an oil spill. So those were used to test animals. I know that you probably all have seen that Dawn commercial where they're washing the little duck with the dish soap. So after they have gotten the animals cleaned, then they did some testing on the animals' blood to make sure that they were healthy before releasing them back. So those went down there. These mattresses and the next one were from they were from a public agency located in Guthrie Center, and it was a camp, and they had cabins, and I was there participating in an educational event. So I was sitting in the classroom looking out the window, probably not what I should have been doing, was looking out the window and daydreaming. But I saw folks starting to carry these mattresses out of the cabins, and they looked like perfectly good mattresses, and they were perfectly good mattresses, and they were bed bug resistant because they're covered with vinyl, and so they could be used by another agency. So I left the classroom and I went into the office and I said, "What are you guys doing with those mattresses?" "Well, we're going to take them to the landfill because we're getting new in and we have to get rid of these." And I said, "Could you please hold off on throwing those away until I get back to Des Moines later this afternoon?" Sure, they would give us a call. So on my way to, I went to Des Moines and I had intended on going to Goodwill. They had an office by Drake, but their office happened to be closed that day. But right next door was Hope Ministries. So I walked in the door and I said, "Hey, do you have a need for mattresses?" And ironically, they had told me that they just discussed their need for mattresses the evening before at their board meeting, and they didn't know how they were going to afford them. So, long story longer, always with me, they picked up the mattresses that afternoon and brought them back to use for their various locations throughout the Des Moines metro area. All because, first of all, I got lost. This was, I don't know why I wasn't using my GPS, but I got lost, and all because the folks that I was going to talk to initially were closed. So that was interesting. In the bottom corner, you see the gigantic rolls of carpet. This was a project that occurred during many of our flooding events these past several years. But Habitat for Humanity in Des Moines had an excess of 50,000 square feet of carpeting that was donated to them. But the stipulation was it had to be used for emergency management purposes and for folks that lost their homes, or their homes were demolished or destroyed because of the floods. Well, fortunately, Des Moines did not experience as bad of flooding as the rest of the state did, and so they couldn't use that carpet there. So they called me. I got a hold of some of the folks in northern Iowa that were, including the community of Parkersburg, which had suffered a tornado as well, and they could use it. And so the only problem that I had was, how do I get that carpeting from Des Moines up to northern Iowa where folks could use it? So I was mentioning to one of my colleagues at DMAC, and they said, "Oh, I bet that the Transportation Institute would haul it up there for you." And I called them and they did. And so we took it from a warehouse in Des Moines that was owned by the city, but Habitat was using it, and brought it up to the Butler County Fairgrounds with that truck. And we had a local company in Des Moines donate the equipment to load it, along with several volunteers from several organizations. And then in Butler County, we had a gentleman who actually sold carpeting for a living come and help measure and cut the carpeting. We helped. We had enough carpet for 80 homes. 80 different households came. They had called me and reserved what they wanted ahead of time, and then they came on a day that we selected, and they picked up their carpeting. And the picture there is the North Butler football team, who we had the equipment to move the carpeting, but they were showing off their muscles. We also had several cheerleading groups that were on site to help us. So they didn't really need to be lifting that, but they chose to. So that was a great story. The next one in the middle is very interesting because I had a company in Webster City that is no longer there that had excess off-spec washing machine windows. They looked kind of like fruit bowls, kind of. I think you guys know the front load windows of washing machines. So they couldn't use them in their product. So they had 2 semi-loads, and I contacted some folks that I knew in Des Moines that ran an art gallery to see if they had any ideas. And they talked to me about a gentleman named Stretch, who is an upcycled artist. He's been on several rehab shows on television where he's used found items to make amazing artwork. And he took the washing machine windows. He's actually based out of Kansas City, but then he was commissioned by a company in Des Moines, the Davis Brown Towers, downtown Des Moines, to do the interior artwork of their lobby. And he used those washing machine windows to create this awesome LED display. And so it makes different arrays and different designs. So it's really cool if you ever get a chance. Check that out. One of my favorite things is the 3 people on the far side of the screen. That was just most recently. I was able to salvage 150 cookie jars that were going to go to the landfill. And I've been making pet and cat food jar containers for the Ames animal shelter. And I deliver so many whenever they call, they ran out. So they're giving those to folks that are adopting pets. So when they adopt a cat or a dog, they get a cat or a dog pet container to take home with them. I've also been using those with Angels Serving Iowa, a program that we're calling the Cookie Connection, where we've made those into jars, cookie jars. And then through a very generous donation of General Mills, who gave me 150 packets of cookies, we've been filling those. And we're using that to connect those at-need and at-risk folks with employment information and other resources that they might need. So we'll move on. In the corner is food waste. And this was a big overview of a lot of things. And I could go on and on about some of our projects. But one of our priority projects is food waste. The Iowa Waste Exchanges assists food manufacturers, really anybody within the food cycle, in reducing their impact on both our carbon footprint and the amount of waste that we produce. We've done this in many different ways. Amelia, you can go ahead. And you have to click again. So here's why we're 2 times. The Department of Natural Resources is interested in the reduction of food waste, as well as the Iowa Waste Exchange, because it is landfilled more than any other material in the state. It produces significant greenhouse gas emissions, not only through production from growing to the end of the life cycle, but through the methane that it produces just sitting in the landfill. So wasted food wastes our natural resources in production and disposal, but it's also that nutrition that is sitting there for folks to utilize. Additionally, 90% of our food that we eat here in Iowa comes from outside of the state of Iowa, which, doesn't make a lot of sense. I wanted to watch this little YouTube video. Amelia, are you able to copy and paste that so that we can watch it?
Yes.
It's right on the bottom of this slide. And it just provides, it's a really quick video that provides some of the other reasons why we're so interested in food waste.
One moment.
Can you see mine, Amelia?
I don't,
Are you guys able to see that?
Is there supposed to be sound?
Yeah. Are you not able to? Are you guys not, are you not able to hear it?
so I think what happened was I was worried that it wouldn't necessarily pick up on your end for the volume because you're not on the hosting end. I had it playing in the background and then I minimized it. So I can go ahead and reopen that because I also had that pulled up. But your video worked great. It was just the audio was coming through my end. And we were in sync until I paused it. So let's get back to it.
I still don't have sound.
Do you hear it? No? Okay.
Well, and I think that's
I'm
okay,
sorry.
Amelia.
I'm not sure.
It's okay. Maybe you can just
Okay.
provide that to folks after the
I'll
meeting.
drop the link in the chat.
Yeah. And so primarily what it's explaining is how much potential waste there is throughout the entire food cycle. So from you know from when we're planting, the greenhouse gases that are emitted, the excess fertilizers that we use to make it grow faster, not working in harmony with our soils to make them build up their health so that they yield more, to getting them to market through packaging and preparation, getting them to the table where we're not eating everything and we're wasting it in that respect. So there's a lot of potential waste throughout the entire food cycle. And most importantly, the fact that 90% of our food is coming from outside of our state is logistically creating a lot of greenhouse gas emissions when we can produce our food locally, as you all know, and eliminate all of that, as well as not wasting our food when it gets to the table or sharing it with others. Okay, Amelia, you can move on to that. So as I mentioned before, we also follow EPA's food recovery hierarchy. And of course, that's reducing things at the source is first and foremost our priority. If we're not overproducing in the first place, then we won't waste it. And we can put those resources into perhaps some of those things that we mentioned, eliminating greenhouse gas, producing healthier soils so that yields are higher. The next thing is feeding hungry people, which is a priority of mine as well. Food rescue is a huge priority of mine. And it came into light really during COVID, where the food pantries were overwhelmed with requests, not only just for food items, but also for materials to deliver those food items to the at-risk and at-need populations. Feeding animals is the next one, but in Iowa, we're not allowed to feed animals. We are not allowed in any degree to feed scraps to swine in the state. Other livestock we can feed, but there's a rigorous method for doing this, including that all of the waste materials has to be cooked to a certain temperature before it can go out to other livestock. The only place that you're permitted to feed food waste to animals is at your own place. So you're allowed to feed your food waste to your animals, but they're not allowed to take food waste from anywhere and feed it to livestock without first making sure that it follows these guidelines that are in the ag code. Industrial uses, composting, which we're all familiar with, and then landfill and incineration is very last. Can you go to the next one, Amelia? Now, EPA has recently updated this, and they've included upcycled food. And I think that you guys all know Sue Marshall with Net Zero, and she works in that area of taking things like, let's say, tomatoes, for example, dehydrating them and making them into a powder. So maybe they were ugly tomatoes that didn't sell or were getting close to expiration. So that has moved its way up the wasted food scale for EPA, which is really exciting for me to see, because there are some producers out there that might have ugly fruits or vegetables that don't realize that just because they're ugly, they're still valuable. So I'm excited about that. Otherwise, it kind of follows the same pattern other than having that upcycled, recycled food now in the mix. Okay, Amelia. Here's another reason why this is so very urgent and important to us in the state of Iowa. Every 6 years, the Iowa DNR does a waste characterization study. And this is a ginormous waste audit or waste sort that they do at various landfills. They did one last year, and those results aren't quite ready yet, but I assisted with that, both in the Des Moines area Metro Waste Authority and also in Mason City at the landfill of North Iowa, where we literally dig into the dumpsters, dig into the trash piles, and sort it out by category to see what is there. And this year, every year since 1998, food waste has gone up in total tonnage and percentage. I'm understanding the percentage this year is a little bit less, but the tonnage is a lot higher. So you can see that it's not just going up a little bit, it's going up by leaps and bounds, what is in the landfill for food. And considering some of the things we talked about, feeding people, upcycling food waste, reducing it at the source, it seems an imperative that there are better ways to manage our food cycle within the state of Iowa so that we're not continuing to see this uptick in food waste going to the landfill. Okay, Amelia. Some of the ways that we have supported this vision of zero food waste is back in 2017, we worked with several schools throughout the state of Iowa to do waste sorts and assessments at their lunchrooms or cafeterias and figure out what was being wasted and what we could do to eliminate some of that waste. And some of these schools came up with some very good projects, from full-blown composting to sharing tables and everything in between to do that. Probably the biggest boon and accomplishment of that study was the food waste minimization toolkit for Iowa schools, which we provided to all schools in the state of Iowa with a step-by-step plan of how to perform a waste audit and a step-by-step plan of how to execute change with regard to wasting food. In the corner, another thing that we do is these waste sorts on an individual basis for companies. The ones in the corner happen to be from a convenience store, a very large convenience store chain in the state of Iowa. This one in particular, we've done probably, I would say, 100 waste sorts over the years to determine first a baseline of what's getting wasted and then try to figure out why. Results of that have included better management of what they're putting out. They want to be it to be readily available to their customers. So like purchasing different software to determine like what sells at what time of the day so that they could produce just enough to cover to both cover customer convenience and also to gauge their costs. That also saves them money when they're more organized with what they're producing. Another big thing that came out of some of those convenience store waste sorts was some of those products that were not quite expired, but maybe would be expired, is to get them out the door to shelters, food pantries, and others that could need them. So that saved millions of dollars in just being able, on behalf of the recipients, and just being able to get those food items prior to them expiring. So that was a big thing that came out of there. We've done numerous waste sorts all over the state. It's not the most fun thing to do, I guarantee you. If, especially during COVID, it was awful to do, especially during the summer of COVID, because we had to wear the Tyvek, the mask, the goggles, the shields. But generally when I do them, I just wear old clothes and take a shower. So, but they smell, they're not pleasant. Decomposting food is not a pleasant smell whatsoever. But the valuable data that we get out of this proves to be an assistance to the customers and clients that have requested it. All right, Amelia. Another thing that I've assisted in doing is Homestead in the Des Moines metro area and also the Blank Park Zoo. The Homestead has a cooperative, so they have some food scraps and some scraps from cleaning the fruits and vegetables before they go out to their members. And so we set up worm composting, vermicomposting bins in their facility. Also, we did the same at Blank Park Zoo. They have scraps from when they prepare the food for the animals. They also have animal hair and some other items. So they set up worm composting at both sites. They had a little competition. The zoo put in a pair of blue jeans to see how long it would take the worms to eat them. And it took virtually no time. I think it was less than a month for sure. and the only thing that was left was the zipper and the button. And so then Homestead decided that they would put in a pair of khakis and see how long it took. And it was about the same amount of time. And again, the worms ate every piece of the textiles except for the buttons and the zipper. But our main priority here was to get rid of food waste and scraps and preparing the raw food items. But the boon and the other supplemental asset was that these worms produce this high quality soil amendments that the zoo used on their landscaping throughout the zoo, and then Homestead used on their orchards and their gardens for the fruit they produced in their co-op. So vermicomposting is another thing we've helped folks with. Okay, Amelia. The Iowa Waste Exchange, we also have helped folks get materials that they need to produce food. You'll see that's an example of a piece of equipment that was available from a care center in the Des Moines Metro that was valuable. People could still use that in preparing food, and that was matched to another company that was using it to prepare food. As of late, and I'm sure some of you get my emails, I have matched up 1,186,000 compostable straws and 256,000 compostable forks. This is 40 pallets full of straws and forks that have gone to 30 organizations, businesses, nonprofits, you name it. I hauled some up to a school in Clear Lake that are using these. That straws and forks don't have a lot of weight. It was 20,000 pounds, but it saved those recipient organizations $55,000 from having to buy forks and straws, which is really unbelievable. And I was amazed at just exactly how much those non-essentials, I guess, cost when you're having to buy them to feed folks. So that's the latest thing that I've been working on. The banquet food that you see there, that's something I've been working on throughout the years regarding when we have conferences and meetings, there's always so much excess food and trying to rescue that. And it's fine, I package it up and I can drop it off somewhere, or in Des Moines, I even have folks that will come and pick it up from the venue. But in some cases, I had a workshop last week in Ames, and they wouldn't let me take the food, even though we had purchased it, because they said I needed to sign off on a document, and they wouldn't let me take the food out with me. But the thing is that they're protected by the Bill Emerson Food Donation Act, and they don't know it. In that particular case, that wasn't the hill I was going to stand on that day. So we just let people at the workshop take it with them for a midnight snack or to eat the next day. So that was kind of a way that we worked around it. But I'm also trying to create awareness about that Bill Emerson Food Donation Act, that they are not liable, nor is the nonprofit that receives the food. That reduces that liability. And the reason that's there is so that we don't have to waste that food, and then that nutrition can go to folks that are at risk and at need. So we still have a long ways to go with that. At this point, I assumed that everybody knew that it existed, but I found out last week that that's not the case. Okay. Now the food storage capacity grant is fairly new from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. And initially it was to help food pantries, but it's been helping government organizations, really basically anyone that feeds at risk and at need populations. Okay. Like I said, the basic rationale was to help food programs, but it's for our food pantries, but it's anybody that provides food assistance, whether it be community fridges, cities that are stocking materials in their city hall, smaller towns, larger towns, it does not matter. The grant will pay for, and this is a 100% grant. The only thing that's not covered are warranties or installation, but it's basically three things: refrigerators, freezers, and shelving. They all have to be Energy Star rated. I've done some, the Iowa Waste Exchange is charged with inspecting these locations after the items are installed, and I've done some recently, and I can tell you that folks are so very gracious and thankful for the equipment. The rationale is if we can store more, we can divert more from the landfill, and that seems to be the case. Go ahead, Amelia. The application is open and ongoing. If you need help, I'm very happy to assist with that. I've done several of them. It's a fairly straightforward application though, so it's not real hard. You can submit it anytime. They review them, and you'll know, within a few weeks if you received it. There's a application review committee that reviews those, that is made up of staff at the DNR. Once approved, the draft of the grant agreement is written. Do not spend any monies until you have a signed grant agreement in hand, as they will not cover it. Okay, Amelia. You get up to $8,000 each time you apply. You can apply as many times as you would like. If you apply 1 year, for, let's say, you're putting in community food fridges in various places, that's fine. And then the next year you decide, oh, here's another site we'd like to put one, you can apply again. It's reimbursable, so the money has to be spent first, and then it can be reimbursed. However, if you can work with a vendor that understands that you have a grant agreement in place, and perhaps they can hold out for a while. There's some nonprofits that just don't have $8,000 in their coffers to be able to pay for some of these things, but that can be done. They also require a report and pictures, and then we have to come and inspect. They just want to make sure there's not things that maybe shouldn't be in the fridges, and they want to make sure that you purchased what you said you were going to purchase. Anything outside of the refrigerators, freezers, and shelving, there's that solid waste alternatives program that I talked to you about that would be eligible. That some other equipment would be swap eligible. Anything that has to do with waste reduction, especially in the area of food, can be submitted through swap. And my contact information, I think most of you know me. It's hard to do this online at Zoom because we don't have as much, interaction, or it's hard to gauge if you're sleeping or listening. So, and that is it.
Thank you so much, Shelly. This was really a helpful little presentation to learn just about what Iowa Waste Exchange can divert as far as reduce, reuse, recycle resources. For everyone on today's call, now will be a time that we're going to start to open up the floor for discussion. So talking about projects within the community and the North Iowa food system or statewide impacts. So starting off on food waste, Shelly, you did a great job leading off that discussion. I know I had some fun questions come up along the way, but I'd like to go ahead and let anyone else ask their questions to you, Shelly, now.
So I have a question and a comment. I'm going to have to go pick up my daughter, so I'm going to transfer to my phone so I can listen, but after I complete this question. But I saw on your chart, or like there was a chart that you said that food waste was increasing at Iowa landfills. That was accurate, right? I understood
That
that.
is correct.
So what do you think, like with the efforts for food, like recovery for, food insecurity and education around food waste and stuff, like, do you think that it's um or what do you think is the reasons why it continues to increase when we are
I don't
trying?
know, Andrea, I don't know that, but the Iowa Local Foods is addressing that, and
Mhm.
Adam is leading that charge. So I have asked to be on that group to investigate those reasons. And also, so there are so many different groups doing so many different things, is to try to get them all on the same page together so that we're moving forward in a manner, that serves us well, that we're using our resources wisely. Um, I can hazard some guesses, and I suppose I would also encourage you guys to comment on what your thoughts are on this. I
Yeah.
I
think
was just
that there's,
wondering if it had anything to do with, like, are we getting better at tracking it? That some of the increase is maybe not an increase, it's just maybe we're capturing more of the accuracy with more accuracy now?
Mm,
Or
I don't
or do
know
you
about
think
that.
it really is getting worse? Like,
I think it's getting worse. Based on my observations when we do these waste sorts, and it's based solely on that. And I've been doing them for 20 years.
mhm.
So, um, yeah. So again, I'm interested in what the group thinks is. I can say with assurance that it's because it's worse.
So I had a few thoughts in regards to that. As far as being a household of one, I know that I can waste food when it comes to if I were to buy in bulk versus if I were just to buy what I need. And I know that is a concern that I receive at my other job as a dietitian at Unity Point when talking to older individuals trying to prepare for themselves meals after maybe their loved one has passed away. So I kind of wonder if that is one direction of it, is household size being not necessarily smaller households accounted for as much as like larger households, because things that you buy nowadays are always kind of emphasizing buy in bulk, and
Yeah.
that's not everyone's cup of tea or situation that they're coming from. Another
Right.
thought I had about it was the National School Lunch Program or child and adult early care programs have some stricter nutrition guidelines in hopes for more nutrition security. But as far as nutrition security being, I guess, well managed and well achieved, I think that sometimes can create more harm than good in the sense of getting rid of perfectly good food, etc.
Right.
So that's
And
what's
yeah,
one
I
idea.
understand that. I understand that, Amelia, too. They have to follow the USDA guidelines, and regardless if the kiddo is interested in that, they have to provide it for them, which, that may contribute some. I would hazard a guess that the bulk of what we're seeing getting thrown away is spoilage at like larger grocers or box stores and maybe restaurants. I think that the commercial far exceeds the residential. And again, this is just my guess. As for me and my household, we really try, which is just me and my husband now, but really try to um, eat all of our leftovers and do things like that. But if we don't, that being said, you can only eat homemade pizza for so many days in a row. But we have a dog and he likes homemade pizza too. So we share with him. Probably not the best choice for our puppy, but
One other just thought I had from that conversation of like if the food waste could be created by some of these maybe national guidelines around nutrition security. are any of those food waste products maybe being turned into art, like you mentioned, with some of the plastic products? I know that there's probably, again, that risk of smell, odor, etc. But I'm wondering if there's been an artist that's been out there for that.
I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to research that. Interesting. You know, Mount Trashmore in Cedar Rapids is probably the first thing that comes to my mind, that they've put that bike trail right on top of the trash. Oh, I know when we go to restaurants and order, our portions are huge. And I think as a society, we have this, we want to get as much for our money as we can. So when the portions are huge, it's fine. We can take it home. But say I'm in Minneapolis and I don't want chicken riding around in my car all day, because that's not the healthiest thing. I'm likely not going to package that up and set it in my car. Do you have a thought, Mal?
Yeah, I'm parked. So are you saying it seems to be more prepared foods that are being thrown?
I would say, I would hazard a guess. Yes, that is what I have seen.
So I'm wondering if it's, there being more food is being prepared in a, grab and go kind of convenience kind of way.
Yeah.
Because more people are relying on, people aren't cooking anymore, I guess.
Right,
Is
right.
ultimately
One of
my
the
thought.
other things that I see is like off-spec products. So a food manufacturer has created a semi-load full of, I don't know, say, a scrambled egg meal, but something was wrong with the packaging, or the eggs weren't the right size, and they don't want their brand to be identified with that mistake. And so instead of sharing the love, maybe we just dump it.
I could definitely see where like larger portions and more access to readily convenient foods, whether it's gas station food or whether it's McDonald's, like those are things that have grown to be our normal commodities that weren't 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Also, I think like you mentioned that that law related to not being liable or whatever responsible if you donate food. I personally only learned about that about a year ago. So I think it is an unknown thing to companies and businesses that they don't know that is protecting them from liabilities, and just have not worked food rescue or food donation into their planning.
Yeah.
I honestly just learned of that bill today when you mentioned it. I had heard it before, and being a dietitian in like the food system, I would have thought I'd heard something like that before, because I worked at Boys and Girls Club. We received plenty of donations, but didn't know that was why we were able to receive it.
That was something, huh? So I know, as a group, we kind of talked about waste and whatnot, but I don't think we have a plan or a beginning point to address it.
As far though as food waste in general, I think you've definitely given a lot of ideas of thoughts of where we could do better in our communities. And are there any other food waste projects that are going on that anyone would like to bring up at this point? All right. Well, if there are no other questions or comments in regards to food waste, being this is a time to speak about any community projects or statewide impacts, farmers markets is our next topic.
Amelia, just really quickly, I have to take a convenience break, but I'll be right back.
All right, sounds good.
I guess I'll just give a really short update about farmers markets related to our Healthy Harvest team. We are in the process of, evaluating how to move forward with our support of farmers markets. Our previous farmers market coordinator has stepped down, so we are kind of reevaluating that position and looking at how to, serve more farmers markets in the future in our region. And also, so that's kind of like forthcoming, like in the future, some changes, but related to events and stuff around farmers markets. Obviously, we're pretty much in the off season, but in North Iowa, there are a few indoor events coming up, and Clear Lake Farmers Market is hosting their first ever indoor farmers market. Let's see, it's 2 Saturdays from now, so I don't have the date off the top of my head, but maybe if somebody else has that, they could mention it or put a link to the Facebook event. But I've heard that. I've heard there's going to be like 40 or 50 vendors, some food vendors, some, of course, Clear Lake also has a strong craft and like, I don't know, artisan group. So, but that's good timing before Christmas if for last minute gifts or some baked goods, or there's still produce available from some of the vendors that have the hoop houses and the storage crops. So I know that's coming up, and I know that in Mason City they are looking at doing another winter market, I believe in February or March. So kind of watch our events calendar for those as they come up.
I will get that in the chat for anyone interested as far as that upcoming farmers market event. I'd also like to call upon Zach. You had mentioned having discussion with our farmers in the region in March for our next coalition meeting. If you have any overview of that discussion you'd like to share now, you're welcome to, or if you have any projects more in the Des Moines area that you would like to share, you're welcome to do that as well.
Sure. Thank you for calling on me. Great timing too, because I actually have to leave at 3:30. Yeah, so I haven't been able to connect as much with the farmers in your region. I would love to in the future, though. That's definitely a part of Iowa. Northern Iowa generally isn't as covered as some of the other parts. And I know there's a lot of farmers that would potentially benefit from what we can do. So we have been doing some interesting projects here in the Des Moines area, working with municipal organizations. So Polk County Conservation and the city manager's office, their sustainability department there, to identify pieces of land that are not useful for typical development purposes. So either they're in watershed management, or maybe they're by the airport. And so there's like regulations around how much you can build. And so we're looking at protecting those lands with our easement process or other processes to create opportunities for urban farming here in the area. And it's kind of a new thing. It hasn't really been done much at all in Iowa before. So we'll see what happens. Looking like things are going to go forward next year. We've been working all year on these projects, and things are starting to come together little bit by little bit. So I will keep you all updated, and hopefully I can present next year and we'll have more to tell.
Thank you so much, Zach. We'll see you in March. All right. So if anyone has any further interest or different topics or concerns for the farmers market, we would like you to go ahead and unmute yourself now. I did drop in the chat a link to that farmers market happening in North Iowa in the next 2 weeks. That's a link to our direct Facebook event for it. No one has any other questions or concerns or comments on farmers markets, we'll go ahead and discuss any community gardens updates in the community. Seeing that no one is unmuting themselves, I can mention our community gardens meeting is usually our first meeting that is in person back in June typically. And this year we went to Central Gardens of North Iowa. There we were able to learn a little bit more about how that garden is developed and set up for the year, and learned a little bit more about how different members of the community were able to take part in keeping those gardens taken care of throughout the season. So as far as our community gardens, there was also a little bit of that element at our last coalition meeting in October at Cal School District in the Hampton, it's Coulter Latimer area, but right off of Hampton. And that was really neat to see their community gardens kind of set up amongst their school district, because they had their what used to be a football field when it was a high school transitioned into a small hobby farm and raised bed garden and courtyard garden. So a couple of different things there, but this topic is typically a little bit more covered in person. So if we have any farm to school updates, I'll go ahead and have you unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I lost you for a second. Are you looking for farm to school right now?
Yep.
Thank you. My technology today is not my friend. Not a ton going on with farm to school right now. Still working with Julie in Clear Lake, doing monthly taste tests. We have one coming up this Friday. We're going to be at the high school, so that is exciting, and getting some planning done for the first part of next year. Yeah, not much else going on, unfortunately. I think coming from the school district, being there for many years, I understand that this right now is a super crazy time and people don't want to think about putting one more thing on their plates, but still reaching out, making those contacts, offering our support. So hopefully once we get past the holidays, we will kind of jump back in. Have been working this fall with Hampton Dumont School District, Riceville, Osage, obviously Clear Lake, and have touched base with Algona a couple of times as well. So hopefully looking forward to working with them some more and adding some more schools to our list.
Awesome. Yep, I will be sure to put in the meeting notes. These will be kind of sent along to everyone in this group that attended today and everyone who registered to attend. So a few more that didn't hop on in case I have any interest in any of these project areas and receiving any additional support from the Healthy Harvest team.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you all. Is there any other updates that you would like to provide just in regards to your personal organization's project? All right.
I have two things I like to mention. Oh, sorry. Was
Go ahead.
someone else saying something?
Nope, just me.
I was just going to also mention that I don't know if I think Lauren, if you're still on there, maybe you could tell the group a little bit about what you're working on with regards to mutual aid and just kind of so that our team can kind of get a better sense for what you have coming up, or if there's any ways we can support you.
So right now I've been extremely busy with my job at FedEx. We're in peak. So some stuff with North Iowa Mutual Aid I kind of put on hold. For example, FedEx had me come in at like 1:30 in the morning, and we didn't get done until 9, and I just come home and I collapse. Let's see, Natasha, she's gonna be sending me some plans for December. I have not received those yet that I can see in my email.
Okay. Well, when you get going back on the food rescue side of things, then it would be, I mean, we might be able to, I know you're working a little bit with Mary as well, who couldn't make the call today, but she's also volunteers for North Iowa Mutual Aid. So she's kind of keeping us a little up to date, but there's probably some ways that we can support your position once you know, have a little more clarity on what you're working on. So
Yeah. And being busy, pretty much, I'm working basically a full time with FedEx right now with how busy we've been. I'm working pretty much 6 days a week. I only get 1 day off. And this will go on until Christmas.
Great. Okay, so it might be the
Like,
new
I'll be
year.
trying my best to like do stuff. It's like I'm kind of being pulled, I mean, pulled thin,
Yes. Yeah, well, even if it's the new year or whenever you have, you know, a time to get back to focusing on this kind of stuff, then that would, you know, just keep it in mind that we can probably provide some resources too. The other thing, I guess, if Mallory's still on, I haven't had a chance to watch that little video that Shelly had, but that might be something that we could also share out as a kind of related to the coalition meeting that we, you know, kind of telling people this is some of the stuff we learned about during the coalition meeting and whatnot. So,
Yep. Mallory is no longer still on the call, but I will go ahead and make sure this is forwarded along to her, along with the meeting minutes to all who attended today and are registered to attend.
because I think that all those types of materials are good to get people to have a better understanding, and little videos are kind of a nice way for people to get a glimpse into the situation and maybe just get it more onto their awareness. And some of the facts in there are pretty disturbing, you know, that it is, you know, that food waste is such a big problem. And I think a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, this was definitely very insightful. I've heard of food waste. I'm well aware that that is a problem, but knowing about not only the food waste and the other materials that are impacted by it was very eye-opening. Well, thank you everyone for speaking up and speaking out on your projects that are within your region and just in general, your interest in today's topic. As far as our coalition meetings, this is the last of the year. Our next one will be coming in March. More information will be provided on our Facebook page in regards to that, or our MailChimp list as we get closer to that. Thank you for attending. If you have any further questions, feel free to unmute yourself. Otherwise, you're free to go. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the week.
Yes. Happy holidays.
Thank you.